Political science. Functions of the executive of a modern state. Discuss the functions of the executive of a modern state. West Bengal Higher Secondary Examination 2017. 8 marks. Answer. Introduction. Theoretically, each of the three branches of the government are equally important. However, practically, the administration of a country revolves around the executive of the government. In the broad sense, the executive includes the titular and the real head of the government, the ministers and entire cabinet, the bureaucrats and civil servants. According to Gettel, in the broadest sense, the executive department consists of all government officials except those acting in the legislative or judicial capacity. It includes all the agencies of the government that are concerned with the execution of the state's will as expressed in terms of law. According to Garner, the term embraces not only the supreme head of the government but also the ministers and the whole mass of subordinate executive and administrative functionaries who constitute the civil service. The executive thus executes the will of the people as formulated in law. In the words of Gilchrist, it is the pivot around which the actual administration of the state revolves. Functions of the executive. The executive has an important job in governing a country. The type of executive influences how its duties are done and its relationship with the legislature.
There are various types of government. For example, parliamentary system of government, presidential system of government, autocratic government, etc. The modes of action or the ambit of the power of executive and that of the legislature are different in each type of government. So, the type of government or the type of executive decides how its duties are done and its relationship with the legislature.
With good ways to balance each other's powers, any executive system can work well to serve citizens effectively. Some of the important functions of the executive in a modern state are as follows. Number 1. Internal and external policy formulation. Paul H. Appleby thinks that policy formulation is the essence of the governmental activity. A policy is verbal, written or implied basic guidelines adopted and followed by the government on the basis of which the government programs are framed and implemented. In every country, the executive of the government makes clear policies regarding internal and external affairs of the country. The political ideology and belief of the political executive shapes these policies. In
The policies taken by a liberal state and a socialist states are different. So, political ideology fixes the policies of the government. In
parliamentary system like England, India, the cabinet under the leadership of the prime minister, and in presidential system like USA, the president formulates and administers these policies. Number 2. Planning. Planning is the basis of various government activities. Planning is the preparation of action. It is the process of determining the objectives of the administrative effort and devising the means calculated to achieve them. Governmental policies and decisions emerge and originate from planning, and it is the political executive who makes plans. The existing socio-economic condition, the emerging political context, the prior election promises of the ruling party, the long-term goals of the government and public opinion, etc., fixes the priority of implementation of these plans. Number 3. Maintenance of internal law and order. Human political life has emerged in response to the need for an ordered and disciplined social life. Order and peace are the essential preconditions of realization of its purpose. That's why maintenance of internal peace is the essential responsibility of the executive. Implementation of law, maintenance of internal law and order, running police forces and other investigation agencies, investigating and prosecuting crime, convict criminals and present them before court, appointment, promotion, transfer, dismissal of the permanent employees, and combat emergency situations through issuing ordinance are the chief functions of the executive. In broad sense, the internal administration is the chief function of the executive. The responsibility of performing those functions lies with the Home Department. Number 4. Diplomatic functions. Nowadays, with the advancement of civilization and progress in the field of science and technology, all the sovereign states are becoming more and more close and interdependent. So, functions relating to foreign affairs have become essential part of responsibilities of the executive. It includes to make the country adequately represented in the matters of international relations, to appoint diplomatic representatives to foreign countries and receive them from those countries, to execute political and economical and other treaties and agreements with different countries and organizations, to establish diplomatic relations with other states and determine the nature and extent thereof, or cutting ties, etc. To recognize new states and their governments, to carry out responsibilities imposed by international body like UNO, to represent country in and through different international organizations, etc.
To make the country adequately represented means to attend global summits and conferences. To appoint diplomatic representatives and receive them is one of the most important tasks of executive. To execute any kind of political treaties or economical treaties and agreements includes all the treaties and agreements relating to trade, business, commerce, and military equipments and other matters like treaties of extradition, treaties of asylum, etc. To establish diplomatic relations with other states and determine the nature and extent thereof or cutting of ties means decide which country would be our friend country and to which country we react not so friendly. To recognize new states and their governments, to carry out responsibilities imposed by the international body like UNO includes sending of military troops as, as and when required by UNO. To represent country in and through different international organizations means participate in international organizations and present those international organizations adequately in the international field.
These functions are discharged through the Department of External Affairs. Number 5. Defense. For the purpose of protecting the sovereignty, integrity and freedom of the country and resisting foreign aggressions and face the international challenges firmly, the executive head, acting as the ex officio commander-in-chief with the help of the Defense Department, boosts up military preparedness through measures like constituting and managing 3 wings of the armed forces, that are Army, Navy and Air Force, appointing, transferring and dismissing military generals, making rules for defense, collecting and upgrading military equipments, planning regarding defense system, declaring military emergency and even, if necessary, temporarily curtail and suspend civil and political rights of the citizen. However, in many cases, legislative consent is the necessary condition for declaration of war. Number 6. Finance. The management of national economy is the largest and most important category of all governmental activities performed by the political executive. The welfare state has different spheres of activities like collection of taxes, promoting a social justice system,
Promoting social justice system means helping the backward people. For example, by providing legal aid or by establishing lok adalats, etc.
acceptance of planning and budgetary problems.
It means there may be problems while executing or while implementing the budgetary rules and plannings. The executive has to solve those problems.
Establishment and management of government enterprises,
Government enterprises includes railway or public health organizations, etc.
etc. These activities require huge money. Generally, this sum of money is collected through taxation, service charges,
Service charges includes toll tax or any other kind of service charges, etc. Penalty charges,
profits from government organizations, donations and loans.
I am repeating this. Generally, this sum of money is collected through taxation, service charges, penalty charges, profit from government organizations, donations, and loans.
The executive collects and spends this money, but the taxation and budgeting require prior consent of the legislature. The economic activities like determining of taxes, formulation of rules regarding taxation, government loans, and other monetary aspects, auditing and accounting, etc., are managed by the Finance Department. Number 7. Legislative functions. Legislation is the function of the legislature. However, the legislature has to abide by some regulations. In most of the countries like Britain and India, the heads of the executive are the integral part of the legislature. So the executive head summons and prorogues the legislature. The executive have a noticeable influence over the legislature and takes the initiative of drafting, raising and passing the bills which is necessary for the implementation of their policies. Again, nowadays, to combat with huge workload, the legislature only frames the main structure of the law and the executive fills up the gaps by making bylaws. This is called delegated legislation. Apart from this, the executive can pass ordinance when the legislature is not in session. The executive in some countries like USA and France can reject a bill sanctioned by the legislature by vetoing it. A bill cannot become an act without the assent of the executive head. Besides, he can issue ordinance and declare emergency. Number 8. Semi-judicial powers. The executive has some judicial powers. In many countries, the head of the state appoints the chief justice. He can lessen or postpone the punishment of the convicted culprit, or can grant him clemency. Besides, settlement of disputes over taxation, appointment, promotion, dismissal, etc. falls within the jurisdiction of the executive. In many countries, the executive deals with the cases of corruption and dereliction of duty or misconduct of its employees in accordance with the law of the land. In the context, the administrative law in Britain and Driot administrative in France may be taken as examples of judicial powers of the executive. This adjudication is called administrative justice. Since these judicial powers of the executive are not identical with those of judiciary, these powers are called quasi-judicial. Number 9. Welfare activities. Now, every state devotes itself to the overall development of the people. The executive has undertaken management of public health, public education, conveyance, agriculture, commerce and industry, public transport, public communication system including post and telegraph, and many other welfare activities. In cases of natural disaster, the state has sent medical and other relief to the affected area and arranged for rescue operations and rehabilitations. At times, the executive has to take up the responsibility of production and distribution of some of the commodities. Countries like USA, India, Great Britain are living examples of that.
Take up responsibility of the production and distribution of some commodities includes rationing system or prohibiting various drugs and alcohol, etc. It means controlling the distribution of alcohol selling and other alike products selling, etc.
Number 10. Combat emergency situations. In countries like Britain, France, Canada, India, the head of the executive has the power to declare emergency and change some normal administrative rules and modes of operation during the period. Number 11. Formation of public opinion. The executive of a modern state has to keep public opinion in its favor in order to keep its subjects obedient and prevent internal rebel. So, the public executive the political executive try to influence the public opinion and build connection with people through public appearances, conferences, campaignings, press conferences, etc. 12. Formal and ceremonial functions. The political executive performs certain formal functions in the political system, such as appointment of ministers, civil servants, judges, and ambassadors. The appointments are, however, finalized by the political executive beforehand as a part of policy formulation, and the formal head of the state discharges the formal duty of making the appointments. Besides, the formal executive discharges other formal functions of pardon, conferment of honors, visiting military base campus, hosting receiving ceremony of foreign diplomats, being present on spacecraft launching missions, etc. Apart from this, British King and Queen has a responsibility to wear insignia of Commonwealth countries and act as a vital link between Commonwealth countries and represent Commonwealth countries in the international platform, etc. Number 13. Organization. The success of the smooth functioning of the modern government rests on the establishment and working of the organization. Organization is a planned, systematic, formal structure of agencies established to perform the administrative task of the government, in which each participant has a recognized role to play. The political executive performs this function. Number 14. Leadership. The image and leadership quality of the political executive of a country plays an important role to boost the morale of the country, to maintain national image in the international field, to achieve the upcoming goals, to coordinate different organs of government and departments of government, and guiding the bureaucrats, etc. Some of the decisions and moves of the chief political executive of different countries influences the affairs of the world too. For example, the US President or the Indian Prime Minister has become an well-known public figure. Conclusion. The controlling power and prestige of the executive are gradually increasing. With the phenomenal speed of its activities, the executive has of late become very powerful. Both in parliamentary and presidential system, the authority and supremacy of the executive have been established. According to Barker, if the function of the legislature due to the growth of the cabinet system is the criterion of the 19th century, the growth of the power of the executive is the criterion of the 20th century.
This is the power of the executive of a modern state. If you like the answer, please like it and share it with your friends. And if you want to know some other answers, you may comment. And please subscribe our channel. Thank you.